So is this the end of the tech crackdown? So we have just concluded the annual Communist Party's politburo around 2 odd weeks ago. So for those of you who are unfamiliar of the concept of a politburo, it's essentially the principal policy-making committee of a Communist Party, where they get together, sit down, pop open a champagne and just talk things out. What should they focus on, what worked, what didn't work, and how do they bring the country forward in the upcoming year? So some of you might wonder, so what's the difference between this and the 5-year plan, also known as China's FYP? In essence, the FYP is the strategic direction set by the government, where government officials from top to bottom will take reference from when they institute certain policies or regulations on a provincial or even on a country level. You can probably deem it as a medium-term vision for the country. On the flip side, as the Politburo is conducted on an annual basis, it's essentially like the AGM for companies, but only amongst the few most powerful men in China that makes all the decision for the country. So to provide some perspective, in this same meeting last year, one of the key factors identified was the tackling of the disorderly expansion of capital and monopolistic practices as key economic goals for 2021. So look at how far we have come this year. I think one thing we can really appreciate about such a governance system is really their ability to deliver, because no obstacle is too huge or too hard to overcome when you essentially control everything from top to bottom in the country. So this kind of system is always a double-edged sword. On the plus side, you can trust the government on delivering because they have a disproportionate amount of impact, influence, and power. They are also rather effective in rolling out what they seek to achieve. On the downside though, there are always little to no check and balances. To me at least, these different systems in different jurisdictions is like money. Money is just a tool to amplify what kind of person you are. If you're trash, money will just make you into a bigger asshole. If you're good, money will amplify your goodness to the entire world. So rather than saying that money is the root of all evil, it's really just a tool, isn't it? We can always go down the list to argue whose system is for the better or for the worse. But there is no perfect system in this world, just a more suitable one. So like money, let's not blame the system, but blame the people that are operating in the system. So like I always chant, it's not the political system, but the people in politics that matter. So if you want to invest in China, it's best if you start figuring out if you're comfortable operating and playing under such a different system. So I'm not in charge of trying to convince you otherwise, but I am mandated to ask you to smash the like button for your social credit score, so please do so. Anyway, let's also not forget, hey, the stock price is not necessarily a good reflection of the business value, because it's essentially a voting machine in the short run, and the real company behind the ticker symbol continues to smash record and bring in revenue. It's just a reflection of the broader market sentiments, and the current prices of the ticker symbol should only affect your compounded return in the long run if you do wish to buy the stock. Other than that, people can display their 100-page write-ups on sentiments and momentum trading. It's not my cup of tea, so don't bother. Anyway, the first sign of the crackdown slowing down was back in August, when Chairman Xi said at a central leadership meeting, the disorderly expansion of capital and the barbarous growth in the tech sector was beginning to bear fruits, and all eyes were focused on Alibaba as investors saw them slowly crumbling. First, Ant was pulled. Then, they were embroiled in a year-long anti-competition investigation surrounding them forcing the hands of their merchant partners. Thereafter, they were slapped with a $2.8 billion fine. They started harvesting more fruits with the $530 million fine on Meituan, bringing in Baidu and JD into the mix of fine companies as well. So Chairman Xi also warned that the Communist Party must do more to guide and supervise the country's businesses with clear rules, effective regulation, and greater policy transparency. So the main point of contention here would also be, what does he mean by guide and supervise? So I think he also realized that, hey, the immaturity of the system is causing many businesses to misstep or even sometimes sidestep some of the regulations, and hence also told the regulators and government officials to wake up their idea implicitly and not just outsource all the responsibilities to the different businesses. You can also tell that, hey, there's been a record number of updates in the last 6 months to demarcate the playing field in order to provide greater clarity for the businesses to operate in. So for a start, they emphasize the country's drive for technological self-sufficiency and innovation to address economic growth in 2022, shunning mentions of antitrust and disorderly expansion of capital. So moving forward, just my own speculation of course, don't just trust a random guy on the internet, but there would be and there would probably be a greater focus in intellectual property, a greater push for tech innovation, which might come in the forms of maybe loosened regulations, greater financial incentive, or maybe just direct support from the local provincial government on self-sufficiency and greater tech advancement. So speeding up the implementation of tech policies, tackling key technologies, and improving supply chain resilience are among Beijing's top economic goals for the year 2022. So boosting self-reliance in the tech domain remains high up in the priority list as the government continues to prioritize stability. So as mentioned in a lot of my previous videos, amidst the backdrop in China today, they are still grappling with the tech war with the US. So a particular area of concern during this strained tension is the semiconductor space, and especially when US have essentially curtailed some Chinese companies' access to advanced chip-making technologies. So I think for those of us who are avid followers of the China economy, more and more media pieces are focusing on stability, stability, stability. Not to insinuate anything, but with this constant chanting, it feels like they're afraid people know that China today is unstable or something. I think they want political stability, which has been quite stable for at least the last 50 years. And next year, we will see if Chairman Xi can do the unthinkable. They want economic stability, where Evergrande will currently be their biggest headache. And most importantly, they want social stability, where citizens are given something to look forward to and there is not much civil unrest inherent in the entire system. So the meeting actually coincided with the easing of economic policies, where the People's Bank of China cut the reserve requirement ratio for major commercial banks by 0.5%. So this essentially released 1.2 trillion yuan or 188 billion US dollars into the long-term liquidity in the interbank system. So in my humble opinion though, this will just be the start of a barrage of other easing of policies, depending on how effective they are in tackling some of the inherent problems. And more importantly, how stable can they keep their system, because they're obsessed with this idea of stability. So largely speaking, I think they managed to achieve what they set forth for the year 2021. When looking at their focus for 2022, rather than focus on what was omitted, I think we should be more concerned with what was said. So will there really be zero crackdowns on the tech sector in 2022? I highly doubt so, but I do know for a fact that subsequent actions being taken, at least on the government level, will have a central focus on trying to maintain stability, whether is it a tech-related regulation or not. So the central theme might no longer revolve around the tech crackdown, but if it threatens the stability of the Chinese system, I bet my ass that they will act accordingly, even though I know my ass is not really worth much right now. So do leave in the comment section down below, do you think we are reaching the end of the tunnel soon? I'll see you in the next video, but more importantly, I'll see you on the moon. Goodbye!